Everyone able to see my screen, right? Okay. So today we'll be seeing a couple of things. We'll be seeing about inner classes, and we'll be seeing about encapsulation. All right. Okay. Let me create a new package for that. So everyone, we have seen an example of inner class, right? Inner class, how it can be declared static, and how it can be used and all. So there are different flavors of those inner classes. Uh, Basically, everything solves only single purpose. It it gives a neat and like small code, and like it is flexible to use a class within a class, right? So it can sort of minimize the code. Instead of creating a separate new file, you can join together everything in a single file. So that's a one advantage, right? So there are three four types of inner classes basically. So what we are going to test is some first is like it's called anonymous inner class, right? So let me create a class for that. So what I will do, I'll just create this class as abstract. Let's say I wanted to create a class called inner. No, let's say outer. Create this as an abstract class, and as we all know, abstract class will have an abstract method, right? Let's say it is abstract void print data. Some data will print, right? So what I will do, I'll create a class here itself. So within this class, I'll create a main method. So we saw some way of doing that. How to create a abstract class object? Can anyone see? Hello. We have an abstract class, but generally, how we will create an object for an abstract class?
We use a runtime polymorphism concept, parent class, and then
Okay.
child.
Some class should extend this abstract class, and we'll create like object of that class. Object is equal to new that child class, right? So we can do one more thing also. What I'll do is like let's say I have an object for this. Let's say we. So if we override like this, I can directly create an object for the abstract class, but I should override its method and do some action here. Let's say I'll print data. right? So once this is over, what I'll do, I'll just print this data, right? Let's try to run this. Sorry. Oh, sorry. Okay, just give me a second. Just give me a second. Okay. Sorry for the little confusion actually. What we have to do, we have to declare that name itself as the this method, which contains that main method actually. This class which contains a main method, the class name should be of that type. All right. And we have this abstract class defined inside this class itself. So what we are trying to achieve is like instead of extending this abstract class and creating an object for that abstract class, what we are trying to do, we are creating one more class here itself, and we are using the main method here. So whenever you create an object for abstract class or an interface like this, we have to override its method. So if we have to one more method like this, it will be asking us to override that also. For example, let's say string um, some string. So what it will do, it will be asking to override this also. So you're getting the basic idea, right? In this way also we'll be able to create an object for the abstract class, and we'll be able to do override the methods and do something directly like this. That is also possible. Fine. So if we try to run this, I call this method, right? So if we try to run this, then it is printed here because this method is called here, right? So is that fine?
Karthik, one question. Why have you used semicolon
Here,
after
huh?
this braces? Yeah, right.
No, see, you can see here, right? It represents the entire abstract class block actually entirely here. You can see here, right? What is this entire block is representing? Because we are creating a.
Can we use it without semicolon?
The thing is that it will throw an error. So you can see what error is like. It's a block statement actually, right? Because
Okay.
generally how we used to do, how we used to call a method, directly by creating an object of it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, here also we are doing an object creation only, right? But just that what we are trying to do, we are just overriding its method by calling that class directly. So it's a kind of a block actually. It's kind of a Java block. Java blocks, I'll give one more example of what is a Java block. Wait. Um, let's say I have some int we are equal to some, let's say I have this, right? Okay. What I will do, okay. Okay. Let's see. So there are two types of Java blocks here. Have I said anything about the static block previously?
I guess
No,
no.
no, right. Okay. So what I can do, I can initialize all my static variables inside this static block itself instead of giving. But you have to declare here. But I can initialize all the values, but just by saying static and declaring everything here, right? So what is basically happening here is like we are having this var variable which is integer and string, and it is also kind of a Java block, right? It's an entire Java block. But what's the difference between this and this is like we are creating an object for the entire class here by overriding its methods, right? So for doing something like this, we have to have a semicolon at the end. But for doing some static declaration, we don't have. We don't have to have. Right? if we try to put here, it will take, but it's kind of a, what to say, optional for static block. But generally Java blocks have kind of this kind of semicolon initialization, right? That's the main point. So you can have something like the static block also. This is kind of a entire Java block for initializing of a different object totally, right? So this semicolon is kind of optional here, but it is mandatory here because we are declaring an entire class over here. So that's the main point. Hello.
Yeah, Karthik.
So, so this one kind of example of inner classes. We can have two classes at the same file, right? We'll have one more inner class called member inner class, right? Let's say I have one more class called a member outer. Let's say I have some, right? I have some variable declared as int here. So member inner classes are something which is not defined, declared inside any particular method. So we have an outer class here. We have this particular variable declaration only here. What I'm going to do, I'm going to declare a class itself here. Uh, let's say class. I'm just going to print something. I mean, declare a method here. Let's say, I'll say void print data or print var, something like this, right? So what I'll do, I'll just print something here. So I'll declare my class here. What I'll do in the main class, I'll create a main method. So what is the advantage of inner class is like it can access the private member of the outer class also. That's the main advantage. This is the private member. Generally, private member is not accessible to the another class, right? But in case of inner class, since this inner class itself belongs to the outer class, then uh, you can access the private member of that outer class itself. That's the main advantage actually. So to access this method like this, what I'll do, I'll create an object for outer class. So to create an object for inner class, I have to do something like this. So if I try to print this, call this method now. So what we are trying to do is like we are creating an object for this outer class. We are calling this inner um, class directly to the outer class itself, like how we used to call a variable, like how we used to call a variable member. If we want to call this var directly, I can do something like this, right? Member outer dot var, it will access that variable directly, right? Similarly, I can directly call this inner member class. I will create an object for that inner member like this, and I will say outer object dot creating a new object for this inner class. Because it is not static, then I have to initialize the object for this inner class through something like this, right? So if I do something like this, and I'll be able to create an object for this inner class now. Then if I'm able to try to access this method, then I'll be able to access. If I try to run this, okay, it's printing, right? So this is also one type of inner class. So we call it member inner class.
Karthik, can you once again explain this line?
Okay, this is clear,
Outer
right?
dot inner member.
We create the object for the outer class, right?
Yeah, this is clear. Creating an
Yeah,
object is clear.
yeah.
Yeah, right.
Here we are creating. See, focus on this highlighted area only. Here we are creating an object for this inner class, right? Leave this part. Leave this part. Here, what we are trying to do, we are trying accessing the inner class through this dot. How we will access any variable, right? So how we will able to access this, because this inner class is a member of an outer class, right? One of object of the outer class, so we are able to directly access like this. But since this inner class is not static, what we are trying to do, we are trying to access this variable by creating a new instance of this inner class by calling its constructor, right? But how we will be able to call that constructor? Because it's a member of outer class, we are calling the constructor of inner class through the outer class object itself.
So, is there any other way of calling a print variable method? Can we call like this way? Mo dot print variable. Is that possible? No, I guess no.
No, because print variable belongs to this inner class, right? Mo object belongs to the outer member. We try
So,
to
for this, we can create an object for inner member class, right? And then call the
that
print
only we are
variable.
doing here actually.
Okay.
See, this object belongs to inner member class only, right?
Okay.
You just leave this part. You just focus on this inner member IM, right? What is this? It does say, because this is how we clear the object, right?
Yeah, right.
Inner member IM is equal to new inner member, right?
Yeah.
So this is how you create a general object, right? But you'll get an error because, okay, wait, not error, because it is a member of an outer class and it's not accessible. So only we are accessing this inner class through the outer class like this, right?
Yeah, got it.
It's the same thing as creating an object for the inner class, just that we are accessing that inner class through this outer class called member outer.
Yeah, got it.
Okay. So okay, there's one more type of inner class. Let's say I have a class like this. Okay, outer 3, something like this, right? Again, I have same integer variable. Let's say declare as private. Mm, so note that for this outer class itself, we'll have one method. Let's say the method name is void print something, print data something. So what I'm going to do, we have a method here. This much is clear. We have a outer class, we have a variable declaration, we have a method here. But what we are trying to do in this inside this method itself, we are going to create a class, right? Class inner. So what I'll try to do, I'll just create one more method here. Void inner print. I just print something here. So what I'll do, I'll just print this var. All right. So in this particular thing itself, what I'll do, I'll create an object for this, right? Note that I'm creating the object inside this what to say, main method. I mean inside this print data method itself. For this particular class, I am calling this method. Right? I'm calling this method. So other things are same only. In the outer class, I'm going to create a main method. Okay. I'll just create an object for this outer class actually. I'll just call this print data method for this outer class actually. Right? Now what will happen? This print data method will be executed. Inside this print data, we have an entire class itself, and we have printed the object for that class, and we have calling this method. And this method, what it does, it prints this variable which is a member of this outer class. So we are getting the same output here also. So the difference between the previous method and this method is like, the previous method, we declare the class outside any method of the outer class, right? But inside this particular scenario, we created a method, we created an entire class inside a method itself of the outer class. That's the main difference. So this way also we can create an object for classes. So is that fine?
Karthik, what is a print data here? Out dot print data. Acha, okay, this is a method here.
Yeah, this is just a method. So we are just calling the method out of the outer class, this outer 3, and just we are calling this method. But inside this method, we have an entire class declaration itself. We are creating object for that class. We are calling the method of that object. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And final thing is static inner class. We already saw that example, right? Static inner class example. Right. So I have a class declared like this. So again, I have some, let's say I have a static variable, static string, my string. Right. Again, have a class which is declared as static. So only inner class can be declared as static, right? Outer class cannot be declared as static. We already saw that. So I'll just print something here. So other cases are similar only. I'll create a main method here. I just try to create an object for this outer class. Actually, one main difference is like this. Since this particular inner class is declared as static, I can directly create an object. Unlike we saw in the first example, right? I can directly access this and create an object for like this. Like I can directly access this. Inner in is equal to. I can just say new. Okay. Yes. So I can do something like this because we declared this directly as static, right? I can do something like this. Other things are same only. I will just call the method, right? If we try to run this again, it is printed, right? So once you remove the static, now no longer this is accessible, right? Only static can be accessed this way. Otherwise, we saw in previous example how to create an outer class object, how to access the inner class object by creating an object for the outer class object. So since this is declared as static, we can do something directly like this. So I'm just calling the method print here, and it's again things are same. So these are the 4 different types of inner classes. Fine. Is that fine, everyone? Okay. 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 We'll move on to other topic which I wanted to cover today. I'll create new package for that. So we'll see what is encapsulation, right? So encapsulation we all might have studied. Like it is kind of encapsulating is what it's kind of protecting something uh, with some layer of wrapping up, right? We call our tablets as capsule, right? Capsule is something which is hiding the actual inner medicine, right? So encapsulation is similar to capsule kind of concept. we are encapsulating something, some information or some vital data through some layer of protection. Every programming language has different ways of implementing it. It's just an idea. Encapsulation is just an idea. We can implement it however we want. Right? Many program languages have different ways of implementing it, but in Java, generally we achieve encapsulations kind of very simple actually. For example, there are two rules for that. I just show an example. Let's say this class name itself as encapsulation. What I'll do, I'll just create an object, private int data. Let's initialize. Okay, let's not initialize this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to have two methods here. Public, I'll say return type of this method is int. I'll say get data. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to return this data, nothing else, right? And I have one more method, public. This return type will be void. I'll just say set data. Inside this, I'll have one argument, int data, integer data. So what I'm going to do, similarly, how we are going to set, right? Same concept. This data is equal to data. So we can understand, right, what we are trying to do here. I have two methods. One is to get this data. We can directly return the data from here. Another is to set this data. So how I can test this? I can create a main method here. I'm creating an object for this. I'm just going to call the two methods. That's it. Set data, I'll just say 5. And I'm just going to print this method e.getData. Again, we all know the output, right? It's 5 only. We are setting the data and we are getting the data. This is encapsulation. So why we call this encapsulation is because of one thing, because the object data is created as private. This private is very, very important here. And the getter setters method should be public. These are the criteria. These are the only criteria that is needed to encapsulate, achieve encapsulation in Java. What is the idea is like we should. This is a this is a method which is available in the same class. So I'll be able to access this data directly here. But generally, imagine this scenario. I can access this data directly, manipulate something similarly here. Like I can change the value also here. But generally, imagine I will not have this main method in my class itself, right? Let's remove this main method and create a new class to test this. I'll just cut this and paste it here. So now it's throwing an error here, right? Why it's throwing an error? Because data is a private variable. I will not be able to access outside of that class. So it's throwing an error, right? So basic idea is this only. I should not be able to access any data member directly. It should be only through getters and setters. In this way, we are achieving two things actually. one thing is like we don't get to change the value of this directly. Uh, just give me a second. I think someone is not in mute, I guess. So what we are trying to achieve here is like we don't get to change the data directly, because when you have very large projects, and if some random project is directly getting to change your data, then that is not good, right? Because when you expose some data over the internet and you kind of run a server to access your data, if someone can directly access the data through the class itself, then it's not good at all, right? We have to have some mechanism where the data is directly not accessed. Only very simple way of achieving that in Java is declaring the data as private, and declaring something called getter setters. We call this in Java world as getter setters, or in any programming language as a whole. So what is the job of this getter setter? It's like to get this data, to set this data, right? But don't think this as a simple scenario of just setting the data. For that only this method is used. I can have any logic here in this set data, right? For example, I can validate data if data is lesser than 0, then I can probably do some logic here. Throw new runtime exception. I can just say so I can just throw an exception here. And I don't want anything to happen here. For example, I can have any number of validation logic here, right? I can just even validate what is incoming request, whether I should set this data or not, whether this setting this data is actually useful or not. I can have any number of logic here. For example, let's try to run this with the data less than 5. It's throwing me an exception, right? Runtime exception. So now I have finer grain of control over what data has to be set, what data cannot be set. Otherwise, I have to have this entire logic here, which is kind of not good, because I have to validate what is this data, then I have to set here. Instead of this, I can have a single common validation point and directly inside the setter method itself. And once this validation is successful only, then I will kind of set this data, right? So like these are the main advantages of getter setters. Even in get method, I don't have to directly return a data. I can do some logic here, right? For example, what class is trying to access the data, whether we can give the data or not. Otherwise, I can throw an exception or something like that. And if every check is passed, then I can probably return the data. So we can have finer gain of control of who should access, who should not access the data, who can set the data, and what logic is there to set the data, right? We can have those controls. Because of that only we are using this concept of encapsulation, right? This is how encapsulation is achieved in Java, but you don't have to do everything by yourself. Let's say we have a class called again same, let's go for automobile example itself. Let's do one thing. Let's create a private of make, sorry, and let's say private string model private string chassis number. let's say one more private. Let us have private string, or let's say private boolean. We can have boolean return type also, right? Is petrol. So what I'll do, instead of me going and creating a getter setters for this entire thing, every Java IDE will have this advantage. For example, I can just go and there is some option called source, right, inside this Eclipse, and you can see generate getters and setters, right? So this is one of the main advantage, because getters and setters are so commonly used in the project industry. So we use something like this. Every ID provides something like this: generate getters and setters. So if you click that option, then this itself is asking us, right, like what for what and all variables or class members you have to create a getters and setters. I'll select everything. Select all is there. I'll choose that, and I'll just say generate. Now everything is done by the ID itself, right? Every basic logic is done by the ID itself. I'll have this integer, uh, get integer. I'll have this set year of make, get model, set model, get chassis, set chassis, and here you can say the return type is boolean, right? So return is petrol. We return true or false, right? So through this way also you can generate getters and setters, and I can, if I have some custom logic here, I can go and probably write here, right? So this is also possible.
Karthik, what is the purpose of declaring all the data variables as a private in encapsulation? So if we declare them public, is that something we are violating any rule
Yes,
there?
yes, yes. If you declare public, then that's not encapsulation. Every data member should be private. We saw in the previous example, right? If we declare that as public, I don't have finer grain of control over the data. I can, for example, let's say this is public, right? Now I don't have to do this setting, getting, and all. I can directly access this data and manipulate however we want. So I am directly violating this logic of having some if condition here. For example, I can give this data as -4 also here, right? Our objective is what? Our objective is like some data should be filtered out and should not go pass through that. So I'm having this logic defined inside this set data. Some kind of what is this logic? It should not be less than 0. Now I can directly violate that logic and set this -4 here, right? So it's not encapsulation, because we have direct access to the data and we can control. We don't have final gain of control over that. So it's directly violating this encapsulation concept. So in encapsulation, every data member should be private only. This is mandatory. This is how we implement encapsulation in Java. It's like Java is not enforcing you to do something like that. But to achieve encapsulation in Java, we have to declare everything in private only.
So we can conclude, like in encapsulation, the main purpose is to hide the data variables, to, or we can say abstract the data variables.
Yes, 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 yes. Exactly, exactly.
Okay.
There are no other better words to put that. We don't want the external system to access that. I'll probably show an example also. Just before wrapping up, I just quickly wanted to show one more thing actually. In Java, there is one project called Lombok. If you go and see in Google, so these are the people who are developing the project. Like So if you go the documentation, one of the main thing what they are doing is like, you can see this getter setter, right? They are, we see there are ways which we can generate getter setter, right? On either we can do, or we can ask the IDE to do for us. Just like previously we saw some example, right? We can go to a source, generate getter and setters, and we can create. We can select all the variables where we want getter setter, and we can generate that also. Or we can use some framework like this called Lombok. We can generate getter setter. We also saw some two-string example in previously for people who didn't attend or know that. So there is a method called toString in object class. We can override that. We can print, if we dare to print the object directly, the toString method is called, right? We can use this toString also. And there's something called equivalent hash code. Maybe we'll cover this in the later videos. And we can create a constructor for the class, everything to an annotation actually. I'll try to show an example. This is our development project actually. Okay, I think this will be good. Okay, let's say I have how many number of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, more than 10, 12, 15 variables I'm having, right? Leave these annotations and all, don't forget this, but just focus on this. We declare everything as private here. Name, private, campaign status is enum, I think, yeah, enum only. So we declare some enum here, right? And we declared some campaign type. We declared some, we have some boolean variable, and we have again boolean variable. We have again long folder ID. We have long campaign ID. Everything we have a date variable here, right? Footer ID and is archived, we are defaulting to false. And again we have long subscription ID. For this particular thing to work, we have to just we have created a class and we have declared everything in private. There is no use, right? External class cannot go and access this. But there is something happening here at the runtime. What it will happen? We have annotated this entire class through annotation called a data, right? Where this is data is coming. This coming from lombok.data, right? If you go to the documentation, if you see this at data will contains toString method equals and hash code getters and setters for all non-final fields. That's the description, right? So for field which is non-final, what it will do at the runtime, this particular annotation is there in our particular project. It itself will generate getters and setters for us, everything at the runtime. We don't have to go and generate getters and setters explicitly. Why? Because why we are trying to do something like this? Because we have 15 16 variables here, and if we try to generate getters and setters as we saw in the previous example, it's going to be very long project, right? There are some options where we can say this particular Lombok to exclude generating getters and setters for this any particular field. We can do that also. I think we can do in this annotation. Let's check. Okay, not here, but there's some way to do that. Maybe I'll show in the next class, right? So what we are trying to achieve is like for only for those variables where we have some custom logic, we can exclude that particular variable only. For example, if I have some getter setter logic for this owner ID, and I can probably exclude that from this Lombok to generate getter setter for us, and I can explicitly write that. Apart from that, if we don't need any explicit logic for generating getters and setters, then probably we can do something like this. We can use Lombok in our project, and we can say just say add data, and every getter setter will be generated for us in a runtime. Because if we do that explicitly, then the class is going to be very huge, and maintaining that is going to be a problem. There is one more class, maybe that's even more big than this, I think. Yes, this one, right? I think we have more than 20-25 variables here. So only we annotated that class as data. So now every getter setters will be automatically generated for us in the runtime. Yes, you can see here, right? We can, yeah, we can use something like this exclude to exclude these particular variables to use equals and hash code implementation. This is kind of little advanced, but I thought you people should know. Through that also we can generate getters and setters, but this is very important. There is one more framework called Jackson, which we use for serialization, deserialization. Like, for example, every class in everything in object, everything in Java is represented kind of class and objects, right? If you want to take this particular object out and we want to read it somewhere, we have to convert this object into a transferable form in over the internet, right? I cannot just send this class somewhere and expect the other person to read because they might not have Java, right? Every API call goes through some formats. Every basic API will defaultly goes in either XML or JSON format, right? So we have to convert this particular class into JSON, and we can send over the internet through APIs. So that is called serialization. And deserialization is something which we get as JSON from the internet, and we are mapping that particular JSON fields to this particular private variables of the any class. That is called deserialization. So both are achieved using a framework called Jackson. That Jackson framework heavily relies on these getters and setters. And without this getters and setters, that Jackson framework will not work. So in there also getters and setters is heavily used in serialization, deserialization.
Karthik, where this Jackson framework is getting used in protractor projects or somewhere else?
No, you can use Jackson framework for a API kind of testing actually.
Okay.
So you are using REST assured and all right framework, but there is
Yes.
one more way of converting that particular object to directly map to this class itself, right? For API testing, how we will get an API as a JSON format, right?
Right.
Right.
We need to continuously call those API URLs.
Yes, right. So there are two ways we can parse that API. How we can do is like we can get that using REST assured, we can get the response and we can access the field one by one, right? For example, JSON may be a nested JSON also. There can be many fields in the JSON, and for example, I can show. Okay, so I can have a JSON something like this also, right? So every time if we know the JSON structure is going to be constant and it's not going to change, I don't have to get the response, get this data individually. For example, from the response, how we can get the response object and have to put square brackets inside the square bracket. I have to put the status, right? Or I have to that response will have some get method, get of this status. I have to put something like this, right? Instead of doing that one by one, what if I can map this entire response to a class, something like this?
Okay.
If you do something like this, I can have all the validations in this class itself instead of me going one by one and accessing every variable and checking the variables coming correctly or not. So I can directly map this JSON to a class, right? For example, if some field called city is coming, I can have one private variable called city here, private string city. I can have some constraint over here. It should be not null or it should not be empty. I can have constraint defined over here itself, and directly I can map. And if some logic is failing, it will directly throw an exception. Hey, your data is not valid like that. So in those kind of API testing, Jackson is heavily used. All right, Sagar.
Okay. Yeah. Yes.
So in this kind of very complex scenarios, this Lombok is very handy, right? Maybe we'll try to do a hands-on on this Lombok. I didn't have an explicit plan to take this Lombok at all. Maybe we'll try to do that in the later classes, right? But
Okay.
but we have to know, like, we can generate getters and setters using this Lombok. That's the main area. And using this ID also we can generate. We can also explicitly define our getters and setters. That's the basic idea. So I think we can wrap up this. Any question over whatever we saw until now?
I have questions, but we can discuss this on Saturday in
Okay.
QA session,
Okay.
because I am implementing getters and setters in Java
Okay.
in different way.
Okay.
So let me implement at first, then I will discuss with you what are the challenges I am facing.
Okay. Okay, Sagar.
Well, another question I have, which is not related to here, maybe
Okay.
getters and setters. Like, suppose there is an ID,
Okay.
and under that ID there is a node which is a anchor node or something. But now the thing is, what I am facing problem is, like, for when I'm running this, I mean, my test in system,
Okay.
it is a different. The ID is different, and when I'm running it on mobile through browser stack,
Okay.
that ID is different.
Okay.
But the element, the child element which is there, the child element is same.
Okay.
So can I here I am trying to use this? I mean, will there be any? I mean, will it be effective if I use getters and setters here? Because the element which is getting changed based on the environment. So
No,
will that?
it can use, for example, it can be used in a different way. You can have this set logic inside the setter method itself, right? Probably you can try to think of the way where you can get the environment, whether it's mobile environment or desktop environment. So if it's
Yeah.
mobile environment, the ID has to be this. If it's a desktop environment, the ID has to be. You can have that logic inside the setter method itself.
So the problem is, Karthik, what I am seeing in our application, that
Okay.
every element, I mean, for a particular button or anything,
Okay.
for desktop it has a different element, and for mobile and it has a different element. So
Okay.
it's kind of, it is going to be huge if I have to create another parallel project which can run in mobile. I'm trying to optimize it. So we will discuss this on QA sessions, I think, because it will be boring now if we discuss here.
And we can connect also, Sagar, because I just wanted to see that project. Maybe I'll have a better idea once I see that.
Yes, that's why. Let me create the setup.
Okay.
Then I will show it to you.
Okay.
I am eagerly showing it to you because I need to resolve this as soon as possible.
Okay. Maybe we can connect today or tomorrow as well, in another time, in evening.
I think weekend will be fine because
Fine.
during this I have office. So.
Fine.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Other people, it's fine, right?
Yeah, fine, Karthik.
Okay. Okay, then I'm wrapping up the session. I'll be sharing this recording like within this evening.